Hello, and welcome back to Collision Repair's Industry Insider. Today's episode is all about ADAS, Advanced Driver Assistance Systems, static calibrations, dynamic calibrations, calibration training, and equipment. We're going to touch on all of that and more today. We're diving into the fascinating world of ADAS calibration and its impact on collision centers. Buckle up as we explore the challenges, lucrative opportunities, and the future of ADAS technology. I'm your host for today's episode, Allison Rogers, and joining me is Ross Lacobellis, Field Development Manager for Hunter Engineering Canada.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. Appreciate being here.
First of all, thank you so much for being with us here today, Ross. We're really excited to dive into some of this high-tech learning that a lot of collision shops are facing with the onslaught of modern vehicles on today's roads. So, just to kick things off, ADAS calibration, it's here to stay. We've seen the stats, 2020 vehicles, almost all of them onwards have been equipped with some sort of advanced driver assistance system. There's no question that it's going anywhere. So what do you say when you're traveling around to anyone that thinks, this is just a fad? They're not on board yet. They're not really on board with the whole ADAS trend or really keeping their center ready to tackle that kind of thing in their shop. So what do you say to the people who aren't on board yet?
Well, they definitely need to embrace the technology and they need to come up with a solution, whether it's going to be a partnering company or, take it on in their own shop environment. But the technology is here to stay. Obviously, manufacturers are going to make changes to this technology as the years go by. But it is definitely here to stay, and safety systems, in these vehicles were put in place to, increase vehicle safety and occupant safety and preventing collisions.
Absolutely. And like you touched on there are multiple different ways to go about offering ADAS calibration opportunities as a business, as a collision repair center, whether it's in-house through a third party. There's various different ways because there are quite a few challenges and there's factors into offering ADAS calibrations in-house. Some of those challenges, ample space, level flooring, skilled technicians, obviously, with the skill shortage going around like it's the flu. And there's lots of things that go into factors there. That's something that shop owners might really have a hard time wrapping their heads around, especially the ones that, like we mentioned before, might see this as like a fad or a trend and they're not really on board yet. Can you comment on these challenges and what that means for the average shop that wants to offer ADAS calibration through equipment that like the ones that through tools like the ones that Hunter offers?
Yeah, they really need to have now true understanding on how many ADAS resets that they're capable of completing in a week, and also, embracing an actual correct repair plan for the vehicle when it comes in after a collision and presenting an ADAS reset as part of the quotation to the insurance company is really the beginning stages of an ADAS calibration. And it is a required part of a collision repair vehicle. And any components that in the mechanical side of the business, when a component does fail, it also requires calibration. So there's a mechanical side also and a collision side. So yeah, they need to have a true understanding of the space, the lighting. With our ultimate ADAS system, we do adjust for some floor differences. So that new technology that we'll talk about later, we developed to address that type of concern with a collision shop. But we do have a couple different solutions for ADAS resets. And then really, providing the proper training for their technicians, which again, there's solutions in the market for that. And, really being ready for it and preparing properly for it with that process and that plan to be successful in calibrations.
Yeah, there's a ton of different layers there. So, people might be hearing all of this and think like, how lucrative is ADAS really, given all of these challenges we're discussing and just implementing ADAS calibration capabilities. Can you kind of elaborate on how ROI, return on investment, and how shops can get the most out of their ADAS investments?
Exactly. Yeah. So we do provide an actual free tool on our hunter.com website. There's an ROI calculator for ADAS calibration, which really does help because the shop can actually go in and adjust their charges per hour. How many cars that they might be seeing per week is typically how we would look at it. And profit typically, in a shop that's going to be doing about 20 calibrations per week. So if a car comes in after a collision and it has maybe rear damage, it might require 1 or 2 calibrations. So 10 cars a week with 2 calibrations is pretty typical with front and rear collisions. So in Canada, we would typically see a $200,000 revenue generated in that situation, which the ROI could be as quick as 3 to 6 months.
Okay, wow, 3 to 6 months. That's pretty unbelievable. But that ROI calculator sounds like a pretty handy tool. We'll link that below in the description. So go looking for that if you're someone that's interested in seeing what your ROI might potentially be if you were to delve into some ADAS equipment there. But yeah, it really depends on your market, I guess. And so, what about the rise of self-calibrating vehicles? Some shop owners, some players in the industry, they might see this trend and assume that ADAS calibrations in the traditional dynamic and static form will soon be obsolete. So, what's the point of investing? What are your thoughts on this, Ross?
I think with the 50 plus million vehicles that are currently on the road, um, that's not going to go away. But the manufacturers will make changes in technologies and things will change. There's also the cost of the vehicle, right? So self-calibrating systems typically cost more to develop and implement in a vehicle. So a lot of manufacturers, to keep the cost of the vehicle low, might stick with a simplistic system that would require a static calibration. And the opportunity is going to be here for a long time. These vehicles are going to last, that 10 to 15 years on the road. And those systems are going to eventually need to be repaired and calibrated. The chances of collision are high, and or component failure through those years. So this isn't going away, right? And we again, we're not trying to say that every vehicle is going to need a static calibration, or some vehicles require dynamic calibration while you're driving it with a scan tool, right? So there's equipment required, and the ones that are the early adopters are going to see the benefits of this ROI fairly quickly. Not too many shops are going to turn down 200,000 plus per year of additional revenue for their service department. Most of them are going to be pretty excited about that conversation.
I think anyone that's familiar with ADAS calibration in our industry knows that there's, different types of calibration. There's dynamic, there's static. Sometimes you might need to do both. Dynamic involves you driving the car, whereas static would just have it sitting in the car with you, moving some tools around it, some laser beams and fun stuff. But how does self-calibrating really work? Because this is sort of a new concept to a lot of people. And, like we just mentioned, self-calibrating. Okay, explain it to me. How does it not just mean that it's going to fix itself in the event of a collision?
Yeah, the vehicle's going to have a baseline. It's going to have a baseline detection in the system, knowing what direction the vehicle is actually traveling, and it will tune in to that baseline based on certain conditions, certain criteria. So road speed, it looks at the lines on the road. It's looking at signage, depending on how sophisticated the system is. Some systems obviously are detecting people and obstacles in the way. So they just tune the computer's program to actually look for these and then tune in that baseline setting. There's a couple of the EV companies in the market that are already using that technology. It exists. Some of the premium vehicles, again, it's very expensive to develop and build these systems. So we see it in a lot of the high end brands in the market.
Okay, so it sounds like, aside from the 50 million cars that we have on the road, that's not an accurate statistic, don't look me up on that, but aside from the millions of cars that are on the road today with, traditional ADAS systems that need this dynamic and static calibration, and, cars that are literally being pumped out on the assembly lines as we speak, there's always going to be a need for some sort of calibration capability, even if it is a self-calibrating vehicle. So Ross, you kind of touched a bit on how documentation is so important, but consumers they say they're getting smarter and smarter every single day. They really understand their vehicles nowadays and all of the different ways it protects them. I mean, they may not understand how to fix it per se. That's what we're here for. But how aware are customers of how intricate these vehicles are in terms of ADAS capabilities and sensitivities? And how do their opinions affect the overall process regarding customer service? Providing competency and showing someone that, don't worry, your car's in safe hands. We're doing all the proper procedures as recommended by the OEM.
So typically, what we're seeing in conversations we're having with collision shops is customers are definitely more aware that their cars have these systems, and they're actually very concerned that this system is going to be, corrected and repaired correctly when it comes in after a collision. So that the general public are definitely more aware of these, and they're obviously worried about their own safety. They're worried about their vehicle that they get in every single day, with potentially having their family in the car and children in the car. They're really concerned about making sure that car is repaired correctly. So a lot of the customers are, what they want to know what the repair plan is for the collision center. they're asking questions and saying, is this going to be calibrated? Is this going to be fixed? So, this is the future, like being well aware and knowledgeable on how to speak about these systems with the client in the collision world is very, very important. And, when you spoke about documentation, we document every step. If it's been put in tolerance, if it's in the correct location, we actually give the final measurements on the actual printout report. So the documentation is backing up what was actually completed, that the correct target was used, the correct placement was used, and how long it took. So again, all these documentations, all these points of contact for the service shop can look at making maybe their process a little bit, streamlined. And they also have something to show to a customer after completion, which is huge value, to show that customer that, the repair plan was completed. Here's the documentation to back it up. Insurance companies like to see that documentation, obviously, to make sure they're paying for something that's been completed correctly. So it's really important.
So, like, what do you say to shops that would be, uneasy about sharing that documentation? Some shops might be like, sharing my repair plan and sharing like exactly what we did on the car and all of the documentation, like that's a lot. What do you say to those people who are just like, a little bit unwilling to give up that information in the name of ADAS per se?
Yeah, transparency. I mean, customers want to see a correct alignment being completed on their vehicle after collision. They want to see that document with the before and after the repair is completed. Customer wants to see a report showing that all these ADAS calibrations are related to a collision have been completed correctly. So I think as the public becomes more and more aware, it's going to get even, definitely more important to have I guess I'll say it again, that repair plan transparent to a customer, the end user. I definitely know if I take my vehicle in for repair, I'm going to want to have that conversation about what documentation I'm going to receive after the repair is completed. I think people, as they become better educated on what's in their cars, they know it's already there. They know the car's correcting when they're drifting out of their lane, and they also know when that system's not working properly. And and they're very, very aware of their vehicle.
So yeah, it really is a situation of, I mean, if you want to survive, you kind of have to. If you don't want to, too bad. If you want to survive, regarding the documentation question there, I mean, if you want to make sure your customers at ease, think about it. If it was your car, like Ross just said, you would want to know exactly what the car is being done to. Just because you have a thorough understanding of collision repair and know the little terms and quirks exactly more than another person would, doesn't mean that the average customer might not want to hear that information. All right, so Ross, I know that Hunter Engineering offers, a lot of different equipment, a lot of different ADAS specific equipment. So can you kind of run us through all of the different tools that you offer, the ADAS Link, the DAS 3000, and all of the other equipment that Hunter offers for collision centers in Canada?
Yeah, so currently we have it available in the market, which would be used for the independent market, so collision centers in the independent world. We have a DAS 3000 system, which is a static targeting system, and then an ADAS link, which would operate that system, which can do static and dynamic. So it actually is capable of taking for the test drive and completing a dynamic reset also. They're currently available in the market. We provide monthly updates to that tool. So as the OEMs provide additional changes to vehicles and updates, we do that on a monthly basis to the tool. So it's very, very up to date, very, very quickly. So we don't have technicians out there in the field. The typical update would happen overnight, like when they're leaving their shop, they would say, accept the update and let it run through its cycle till they walk in the morning, it's ready to go. We've developed that tool very aggressively because the market's changing very quickly. So we've developed the tool to have some secure gateways unlocked, which gives us access to some vehicles that a lot of scan tools do not have access to. We're not huge in the scan tool business, but we need this tool to complete an ADAS reset. So it's very important to us, and we've we have a very, very good tool when it comes to that and then we've developed this new product which just currently launched in Canada for Honda and Acura dealers, which is called Ultimate ADAS, which will be it will grow in the Canadian market with other brands. We're following an OE path for this tool currently, but the plan long term is to have compliance with every brand on the market.
Yeah, so our team was actually lucky enough to visit the Hunter Engineering headquarters in Aurora, Ontario last month, and we were able to see Ultimate ADAS, a demonstration of it with the Honda and Acura dealers, the competent folks over there. Could you just elaborate, Ross, on how quickly you guys were able to do these certain calibrations, how fast that is, and how that's kind of lucrative for a collision repair shop or any ADAS customer?
Yeah, so Ultimate ADAS definitely is our, definitely we're running towards that future because it error proofs the process for the technician. It will give them laser guidance on the floor for the actual OE clear space required. Then it will actually take measurements of the vehicle in a 3D space. It measures the floor where the calibration fixture has to place and will automatically adjust that location based on floor height and slope, up to 4 degree slopes. So it automatically adapts. The actual rail will adjust itself 3-dimensionally on yaw, pitch, and roll. So it actually changes 3 different dimensions to adjust to that floor and to the car. So it gives the technician a laser dot exactly where things go, or a laser line exactly where something has to be placed. It will not let them proceed without it being in the correct location. And everything is confirmed with a wireless barcode scanner that accepts every process before they continue. So if they make a mistake, which we showed you last week, we actually showed you an error being made intentionally, and it wouldn't let the technician go. He had to back up and go correct that error, which took an extra 10 seconds to correct this error instead of starting from scratch right to the beginning after a failed calibration. We're trying to eliminate a failed calibration, which typically they're restarting all the time. And it's a complete. So on one of the resets we did last week, it was a 1.5 hour flat rate time pay on a Honda vehicle, and we completed in about 6 minutes from start to finish to calibration. So that was target placement, and then the scan tool would be plugged into the vehicle for the final. So it's about 6 minutes to complete that. So we're cutting the time greatly with these new systems, but we're also really targeting that employee retention. Employees are happier using the equipment when it's easier to use and they're not having to redo their work over and over again. So we're really happy, and I'm super excited about the product because the product works so well.
All right, perfect. So, I mean, anyone can reach out to your local Hunter rep if you have any further questions or if you're actually looking to have one of those conversations. But you kind of touched on how in the demonstration that our staff were lucky enough to attend, how you demonstrated a mistake that was made and how the machine wouldn't let the technician continue because there was a step skipped in the process. I mean, that's great. Seems like it's foolproof. But what about the learning curve with these tools? A lot of these things that we've talked about today are very intricate, hard for a lot of people to get their heads around if they're not really adept with this sort of technology and ADAS calibrations to begin with. So could you elaborate on the learning curve with, ADAS tools and specifically the Hunter equipment that we've discussed here today?
So one of the goals, I think, when the Ultimate S was built, it was to make it really, really easy to navigate through to a target placement process. And the technicians so far that I've interacted with are completely blown away on how easy it is to navigate the software, because there's a picture on the screen, there's animated graphics that are giving them what direction they need to move something. It actually gives them arrows and animations to show them how to direct that placement or adjustment. When it comes to training, Hunter has the Hunter Learning channel, which we actually have on YouTube, and we post actual step-by-step ADAS resets on the DAS 3000 ADAS link currently, and that will be added. We're definitely adding to that site on a regular basis, and we do have training programs about it. So we do actually have in-person training classes that are scheduled when required to walk people through this process. But at the end of the day, I think Ultimate ADAS is going to really help with that learning curve, because there isn't a lot of, we take away the majority of the steps. We're taking multi 20, 30 step process and bringing it down to 3 to 5 steps for a technician.
Yeah,
So they don't have to
hours to minutes.
remember.
Perfect. We will link that YouTube channel in the description. But I also want to touch on you guys have a really expansive headquarters here in Canada that is located in Aurora, Ontario, the one that I mentioned that our staff have attended a couple times for demonstrations and some tours. But could you just tell us about all of the different capabilities that that place offers? You have training rooms, classrooms, the power bay. Just tell us about it, Ross. Tell us about that incredible facility.
Yeah, so that our location here in HQ Canada, headquarters in Canada here is it supports all of Canada. We do have yes, a huge, 50,000 square foot facility here that supports training, classes, and on-site classroom books to go through the program and then go actually participate on hands-on. We are developing additional ADAS advanced type of training classes that we hopefully will have launched later this year, which dig in a little deeper with to dive in a little bit deeper with technicians to have a better understanding of exactly what they're doing. Um, the power bay itself, we're constantly looking at making things better and changing it up. So we have some big plans for some improvements we're going to make in the area to make it more efficient for our facility. But it is a beautiful location for customers to come visit and see all of our equipment, from our tire changers to our balancers to our inspection lanes that would go typically at the entrance of the location, to all of our HD products. We have just released some new HD products in 2023, which are incredible. They're industry changing products. So again, the company's not just focused on one area, it's focused on the full product lineup to grow with the industry and provide incredible technology for the technicians.
So just a few different solutions, just a couple different things there for shops to consider. In terms of compatibility with other tools that shops might already have on hand, what sort of scan tools are required to become compatible with the Hunter equipment that you just mentioned here, Ross?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the ADAS Link and the DAS 3000 are tied to each other, so they have to be used for that product to function correctly. When it comes to Ultimate ADAS, we let the technician bring their own scan tool to the equation. So if they currently have a really good scan tool that's functioning for them and it has ADAS capabilities, they can now bring in and do the final calibration with their own tool. So it's a little bit different way of thinking, but people get really connected to their scan tool, and we do have integration with the ADAS link to Ultimate ADAS. There is a way that it ties into itself, but we still allow the technician or the shop owner or the collision center to choose which scan tool they're going to move ahead with when the future goes down the road with Ultimate ADAS for everybody. That obviously that's the goal for you know
Sure.
the future of ADAS resets. We're an engineering company, and Hunter Engineering Company is always looking to move ahead with technology.
All right, so we know that Ultimate ADAS is available to Honda and Acura dealers in Canada. Could you elaborate on the other types of equipment there? And, people might be hearing a lot of the information we've sort of thrown at them today, Ross, and think, okay, so all of these things to consider. How do I know which piece of equipment is right for me if I am really hooked and I do want to, pursue some ADAS research or maybe even consider implementing it? How do I know which tool is right for me and which is the best for my collision repair center?
Yeah, I see a benefit of doing a collision audit on every vehicle pre-trade in for the dealer world. The collision center maybe get a better look at the vehicle before they actually prepare a quotation, to really see if there's any hidden damage that the machine will catch. It's a huge opportunity. And some of the insurance companies, this is billable. A pre-collision audit is a billable piece of paper, and a lot of them aren't taking advantage of that in their repair plan to provide this collision audit pre and post and charge for both. Here's before, here's the after snapshot of the vehicle. And again, we're going to go back to it again, transparency with the customer. I would love to see my vehicle pre and post repair on a collision audit to show that it's perfect. People want their car to be exactly like it was pre collision.
Yeah, think about it like an x-ray too. Like you would obviously want to see an x-ray of your broken bone just because A, it's cool, and B, you want to see how bad it is. And then it'd be cool to see, the after to see how bad that repair, how long that repair took to heal, how that terrible repair now has turned into, a freshly new bone basically. It hasn't been buffed and polished like the fantastic cars that get repaired with our men and women in the collision repair sector. But it's pretty cool to think about that analogy. And that's what a customer wants to see nowadays. We talked about how aware they are, and that's really what they want to see.
We look at it, this is the way I look at it. This is Ross's personal little spin on it, but it's the triage. You go to the emergency rooms, the triage, they take a look at everything, they see what's going on, and then afterwards is a repair plan. The operating room, they have a repair plan on how they're going to fix the car correctly and hand it back. So again, the owner's going to be safe in that vehicle, everything's operating properly, everybody's happy, and there's no issues down the road.
So you mentioned that there's a collision setting on some of these tools that are specific for collision centers. We have a lot of listeners that are just doing collision, just collision. They're not part of any mechanical services or not attached to a dealership or anything. So as a collision center that's just doing collision, what is your suggestion for, is there an opportunity with this equipment? Is there an opportunity for them to maybe get more lucrative opportunities, opportunity for more line items? Could you just explain sort of the collision center specific draw for this sort of equipment?
Yeah, parting words, don't be afraid of the systems are on the market. Get educated, learn about it, and just a huge opportunity here to to retain technicians and grow your businesses and your skill set in the field. And I was very happy to join you in this conversation today, and it was great sharing some information.
Well, Ross, thank you so much for this eye-opening discussion into advanced driver assistance systems and the different calibrations and how lucrative it can be for shops. I would recommend anyone that found any value in this podcast today to check out Hunter Engineering. We've linked their website down in the description below. You can also reach out to your local Hunter rep. We've got the Find a Rep map down in the description as well. And make sure to check out that ROI calculator if you want to see how fast you can turn around an ROI with one of Hunter's tools. They've got some cool predictions on there as well. We've got all that linked and more down in the description. But thank you so much to Ross Lacobellis for being our guest today. We really appreciate you joining us, and everyone at Hunter Engineering for providing some insight here. And thank you to all our listeners here today. Make sure that you're subscribed to Industry Insider wherever you listen to your podcasts, whether it's SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you're subscribed and you can stay tuned for new episodes. Subscribe to our e-zine as well to be alerted of new episodes, and we'll see you next time on Collision Repair's Industry Insider.